This section introduces some coordinate geometry and looks at the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So first we're going to start out with the Pythagorean theorem. And the Pythagorean theorem works for right triangles like we have here. And it states that the sum of the two squares of the legs, so a squared plus b squared, is equal to the square of the hypotenuse, c squared. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, true for any right triangle, which we'll prove much later in the course. But for now, we're going to take that as fact. So now we come down to this grid, and we have a point at x1 comma y1, so that's just one point somewhere on the grid, another point at x2 comma y2, and we want to find the distance between them, d. And what we do is if we go directly to the right of x1, y1, we'll be at a height of y1. If we go directly down from x2, y2, we'll be at a horizontal spot of x2, so this point is at x2 comma y2, directly across, directly down. Now the distance from here down to here is y2 minus y1, the difference in the y-coordinates. The distance here is x2 minus x1, the difference in the x-coordinates. And so we have a right triangle, as you can see. And what we do is use the Pythagorean theorem as we do up here, but with this right triangle. So we have a squared, which is x2 minus x1 squared, plus b squared, which is y2 minus y1 squared, equals c squared, which in this case is d squared, d for distance. And then to get d by itself, the distance, you just take the square root of both sides. And so this is your distance formula. So let's take a look at some examples. So you've got the point 2 comma 4, the point negative 1, 6. So your distance is the square root of negative 1 minus 2 squared, because that's x1 or x2 minus x1, that you could reverse them, it wouldn't matter here, plus 6 minus 4 squared. And then you simplify negative 1 minus 2, simplify 6 minus 4, and you get rad 13. This is reversing them. As you can see, it wouldn't matter if you do 2 minus negative 1 and then 4 minus 6. Because you're squaring these things, whether they're negative or not makes no difference. Either way, you get rad 13. Okay, 7, negative 3, and 5, 9. So the distance is the square root of the difference in x's, so 7 minus 5 squared, plus the difference in y's, negative 3 minus 9 squared. So that's 2 squared and negative 12 squared, rad 148, which we can simplify a little bit to 2 rad 37. And then finally 0, 6 and negative 310. So square root of difference in x squared plus difference in y squared. So we get 3 squared plus negative 4 squared comes out to exactly 5. Now let's take a look at the midpoint formula. So midpoint, rather than find the distance between 2 points, you want to find the location of the midpoint along the segment joining them. So let's go over to here. So we have this example. So let's look at the vertical and horizontal parts, sort of as we did for distance formula. This is the midpoint of the vertical section, and the way to get the midpoint is you take the average of the two y values. The horizontal midpoint, you take the average of the two x values. So if you ever want to get a midpoint along a segment, you average the two values at the endpoints. And then the midpoint of this overall is just using those individual points, the x midpoint and the y midpoint. So basically what ends up happening then is you're averaging the x values and averaging the y values. You add them up, divide by 2, add them up, divide by 2. So there's your midpoint formula. Okay, so 0, negative 6, and negative 310. Add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. Simplify it down to here. Negative 4, 2, 6, negative 6. Here's negative 4, 2 over here. 6, negative 6 is way down here. Add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. Simplify it, and you get down to 1, negative 2, which is here. Now, what I want to point out here is that to go from an endpoint to a midpoint, we went down 4, right 5. To go to the midpoint to the other endpoint, down 4, right 5. Those are the same amounts. It's not a coincidence that you go down the same amount and across the same amount to go from endpoint to midpoint to endpoint. And I'm just making the point here that if you take the average of 6 and 10, you get 8. And to go from 6 to 8 is 2. To go from 8 to 10 is 2. And the fact that those are both 2 is not a coincidence either. So what we can say then is that if we have an endpoint at negative 2, 1, and we have a midpoint at 2, 3, which is over here, we can find the other endpoint by using the formula or by doing it a lot quicker. And I'll show the quicker way in a moment. First, using the formula, now we know the midpoint, the x value. So we do negative 2 plus x divided by 2 equals 2. Multiply both sides by 2 and add 2 to both sides. And then add the y's, divide by 2. So 1 plus y divided by 2 is 3. Multiply both sides by 2, subtract 1. But another way to think about it, which is a little easier, is to go from negative 2, 1 to 2, 3, we had to go to the right 4. This is plus 4. So let's just go plus 4 more. So we do plus 4 more, and we end up here at 6. And then to go from 1 to 3, we had to do plus 2. You see we went up 2. So let's just go up 2 more. So we do plus 2, and we're up to 5, so you see 6, 5. All right. Using that same idea, to go from negative 12, 3 to 4, negative 9, we had to go negative 12 to 4 is to the right 16, and 3 down to negative 9 is going down 12. So let's do the same amount from here to the next one. So going to the right 4, we have 4 plus 16 is 20, and then we'll go down 12 from here. So negative 9 and negative 12 gives you negative 21. So our another endpoint is at 20, negative 21. Okay, so now let's take a look at some more examples of this. First of all, plotting some points. Just make sure we're clear on that. So negative 2, 5. We will go left 2 and up 5. So that would be right about here. So that's the point A. 5, negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the right, down 2. So that's point B. 0, 6, you don't go right or left at all, but you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the point C. Negative 4, 0, go left 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't go up or down at all. That is go up or down 0. So that's the point D. And finally the point E, negative 4, negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 down. So that's the point E. Okay, now some distance formula practice. So we'll do this one here. Distance is the square root of 1 minus 3 squared plus 0 minus 8 squared. This becomes negative 2. When you square it, you get 4. This becomes negative 8. When you square it, you get 64. So it's radical 68. You'd use a calculator to get to the nearest tenth. I'm going to skip that part. Or simplifying the radical too. We'll skip that for now. All right, for this one, number 9. And for number 9, we have distance is the square root of, 0 minus 0 squared, and then 5 minus negative 3 squared. So that's the square root of 0 plus 64. It's just 8. And these points are directly above one another, so really you could just count squares because it's on a straight vertical line. And then finally, let's look at number 11. And the distance for this one is going to be 2 minus 1 squared plus 7 minus 2 squared, and take the square root of all that. So we get 1 squared is 1, 5 squared is 25, so it's radical 26. All right, now we're doing midpoint formula. So add the x's, divide by 2. So negative 1 plus 2 over 2, comma 5 plus negative 3. So 5 minus 3 over 2, and that comes out to 1/2, comma 1. And then let's try this one here. So add the x's, divide by 2. So negative 5 plus 0 is negative 5. And then 12 plus 0 is 12. And so you get negative 5 halves, comma 6, or negative 2.5, comma 6. All right. Now we have the situation where you have an endpoint and you have a midpoint. So here's an endpoint, here's a midpoint. And so let's do it the quick way. To go from the endpoint to the midpoint, negative 3 to 1, we had to add 4. And to go from 6 to 2, we had to subtract 4. So then we'll continue on and do the same thing. So from 1, 2, we're going to add 4, so we end up at 5. And from 2, we're going to subtract 4, so we end up at negative 2. So our answer is 5, negative 2. And then for number 19, endpoint is at 4, 12, midpoint's at 4, 11. To go from 4 to 4 is plus 0. To go from 12 to 11 is minus 1. And so 4 plus 0, well, of course, that's just 4. And then 11 minus 1, we're down to 10 now, so we end up at 4, 10.